Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this time. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to share the stage with eminent personalities. I don't have gold medals with me, nor do I have walked the ramp with Miss Universe or Miss World, but what I do have is a platform for young people. What I do have is my experiences that I would like to share with young people. This is my second visit here to Imphal. I'm in love with this place, and I really hope that as I go on to share about Model United Nations, young people will be encouraged, and I hope that this will definitely make an impact in our region. Model United Nations. I think there are some technical problems, but in the meantime, let me just go on to share about where I come from. I'm 24 and I recently completed my master's in political psychology from University of London, as mentioned, and I've been part of the Model United Nations circuit for about 5 years now. This is my 5th year, and we are introducing this concept about Model United Nations in the Northeast. Model United Nations basically is an academic simulation of the United Nations. It is a conference, a youth conference or a youth summit. It is a gathering of young people who gather together to discuss on some of the most important problems faced by our generation, to discuss on issues that are currently being tackled by the United Nations. Issues such as poverty, education, climate change, etc. In a Model UN conference, every delegate, every participant, every youth who attends the conference represents a particular member state, or they represent a particular NGO. They might represent a country. Before they go to a conference, it is expected that these delegates have to research on their country's policies, on the NGO's policies, and they advocate their views to the fellow delegates. The ultimate goal of a Model UN conference is to draft a resolution. What is this resolution? A resolution basically is a collective formal statement that is in response to the issue that is on the table. Solutions to the existing problems that are drafted by the delegates who attend the conference, addressing the issue, addressing the problem. That is, in brief, an overview about what the Model United Nations is. This is the image of a typical Model United Nations conference. It's been about 6 to 7 decades now since Model UN has been introduced. It was first conducted in the United States and has been around in the country for about 6 to 7 years. And for the first time, we conducted the regional Model UN conference in the Northeast last year in December. This is open to young people who are in high school, in college, in universities, recent graduates and postgraduate students. We're looking for young people who are really interested in making a difference, who are interested in learning about global affairs, international policies, to learn more about the United Nations, young people who are interested in studying. We introduced this in the Northeast under the theme, the Northeast India International Model United Nations. This is an image of the conference we had last year. The theme of the conference was the UN 3 pillars: peace and security, development, and human rights. The UN General Assembly, 4 committees under that was simulated. At the MUN 2013 conference, we had Over 200 young people gathered together from 69 schools and colleges and universities from across India, debating on issues, discussing and deliberating on the issues pertaining to the UN 3 pillars. Following this conference, model UN clubs and associations have been established. A few schools in Manipur were part of it. We have schools in Guwahati, Nagaland, and Meghalaya, currently part of this organization. So what is this NIMUN? What is this organization? We are a non-profit educational foundation. How did this come about? I was in second year in college when I first got to know about Model United Nations, and I attended the first international conference in 2012. Why United Nations? I was 5 years old. I was with my family. I'm from Kohima, Nagaland. I was shopping, and the next moment I saw my car burning, our car burning, and I had to lie down on the road for hours, almost a whole day. It really made me question on the political system, on the political government, on the political conflict in our region. It made me question on the existing systems. That really made me question more about the world surrounding me. And that's why I was fascinated about the United Nations. And when I first came across Model United Nations, without a second thought, I went for it. And the first conference I attended, the first international conference was in 2012, when I was part of the African Union, and we had to discuss on the situation in Libya. 1,300 students gathered from across the world. And 15 organs and agencies of the United Nations were simulated at this conference. One thing I realized from this conference was, to resolve a conflict, it's difficult, not because of the lack of money or power or lack of time, no. But it is the difficulty in trying to negotiate, in trying to understand the other person who comes from a different background, who comes from a different religious background, cultural background, different political aspiration. And what Model United Nations gives us is a platform not only to face it, but to learn how to overcome it. And Model United Nations gave me that. And so with that at the background, we founded the Northeast India International Model United Nations with a group of young people, all recent graduates and postgraduate students with similar interests. Why Northeast? We are all aware of our region being very strategic. Because of the geopolitical position of the Northeast India, emphasis and importance has been given to our region for a few years now. And at this time, with so much of emphasis and importance given to us, are we young people ready? Are we ready to influence policies? Are we ready to get into decision making? Are we aware of our political history? Are we aware of the success and failures of our leaders? Or are you just one of them sitting laid back and hoping that some change will happen and waiting for difference? Keeping our social, political, and economic situation at the forefront, this organization was founded. And our first and foremost goal is to promote the works of the United Nations. Not necessarily mean we agree to everything that they're doing and they're saying, but to understand the pros and cons of these international organizations, to understand the flaws that this organization has, but at the same time, be aware of the work that it has done across the world and the kind of impact that it can have in our region. We want young people to read more about the problems that we have, to read more and explore, and understand global politics and global affairs. The three main goals that we would like to achieve by promoting Model United Nations in the Northeast. The first of all is we want educators, we want heads of institutions, we want students and young people to rethink about education. For so long, we have been talking about educational reforms in Northeast India, in the country. We need to compete, etc., etc. We really think that Model United Nations is an effective tool, hopefully will be an effective tool to help in bringing educational reforms. How? Model UN gives an opportunity for young people to go beyond their classrooms, to go beyond textbooks. I think it's only fair that we realize soon that the young people we are dealing with right now are part of this generation, a cohort of young people also known as the millennial generation, who are in a time where competition has increased tremendously. And I can say that for a fact because I'm part of that generation, and interacting with my seniors, my elders, this is what I've realized, that we are in a time when there's so much of unlimited and unregulated information available for us, new career opportunities. But how ready are we? How ready are we from the Northeast to compete with the rest of the country, rest of the world? It is very important that we keep this at the back of our mind, that good education is not a privilege, but it is a right that every individual deserves. The second thing that we have as our objective is training young leaders through Model United Nations conferences. It gives young people an opportunity to go beyond, go outside of their state, the country, to interact with young people that crosses religion, cultures, and national boundaries. And how train future young leaders. If you look at the history, Model UN has produced amazing world leaders. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, was a former Model UN delegate in a conference. And when I say a leader, I don't necessarily mean becoming a political leader or becoming a world famous leader, but rather an individual who will lead the society and make a difference, who will lead a team and make a difference. Model United Nations gives us a platform to equip ourselves with skills and knowledge, experiences and networks that will prepare us to be a leader and make the difference. Thirdly, it's learning the arts of diplomacy. Like never before, diplomacy is of high importance now. Before attending a Model United Nations conference, it is expected that delegates, the participants, have to research and study on the country's policies, on the topics, on the works of the United Nations and the UN in general. And when they go to a conference, it is expected that they should lobby, they should negotiate, they should deliberate, discuss, and ultimately draft a resolution on consensus with the fellow member states. And in the process, we expect and we hope that young people will be able to understand this whole idea of diplomacy, the role it plays, and how it can impact our lives, the policies, the decisions that are being made. Why are we giving so much emphasis on this? On diplomacy, on future young leaders, and our involvement in policy making, because the policies that are being made now will impact your future and my future. In the year 2000, the UN General Assembly had passed a resolution about the involvement of young people in decision making. How effective has that been in our region? Are you ready? Am I ready to influence and interact with bureaucrats, with politicians, with policymakers? the future with Model United Nations. Model UN gave me and made me realize that I'm small, that I'm part of a bigger picture, much larger than myself. Never before has the world given so much importance to young people. Thus, it's important for us to grab this opportunity and get involved in decision making, equip ourselves with skills. So today, I would like to challenge students and young people. Go ahead and try Model United Nations and see what this is about. But if this is not your cup of tea, do not stay still. Go out there, try new things, and try to be the difference. Make change happen. Thank you so much.